Hey everybody, Bryan Steele here. Welcome to the very first episode of my vlog YouTube channel thing, Tales from a Professional Nerd. Um, I say that with all of the love in my heart for my fellow nerddom out there, because frankly, if it wasn't for geeks and nerds and dorks and whatever you want to use the phrasing or the nomenclature for the gaming subculture, if it wasn't for you guys out there, I really wouldn't be able to live and survive the way that I do. And that's kind of why I started this channel. Is so there are all kinds of here's a show of people that are playing games for you to watch and enjoy what they do. Here is a channel that reviews games, so you maybe know what you need to do when you go out and buy that next cool new product. Sometimes it's just people that are very passionate about games or games or movies or whatever. They just really want to tell the world about their feelings about these products and their love of the subculture. There's hobby channels where they're showing people how to paint or how to sculpt or how to draw. There's all kinds of different avenues for today's gamer to kind of get access to the end result. And talking to a couple of my friends recently, some of my other industry friends, I don't think that I knew of a vlog, which I really kind of hate that word, but it fits, and so vlog it is. There isn't uh, a peek behind the curtain, so to speak. There's lots of, hey, this is how we designed this game, or here's this diary of how we developed this game. Um, and but there's not a kind of just a look at the life. There's a lot of us. There are a lot of, I use, whether I even use the term developer, designer, writer, author, enthusiast, whatever. There's all kinds of terms and nomenclature that you can use to describe what a gaming professional does. And at the end of the day, all of those things combine to create the products that as gamers we love, and that we spend our time and our money and our efforts, and our brain power and our free time putting that love back into them, and hopefully with friends and friends, family, that sort of thing. Gaming is a way, at least in my experience and from the people I've talked to, gaming is a way for us to sort of set aside some of the hard stuff that happens uh, during everyday real life. Whether you are a youngster and school is getting you down and homework is tough, and maybe that boy or that girl that you've got a crush on isn't responding to your texts, or maybe you got in trouble during the school day because something dumb happened and it wasn't your fault, but there's no way you can fight against it. You come home, you shrug all that stuff off, and you can play a game, and you can get into another world, in another mindset. If you're an adult, sometimes bills are the worst. Adulting is hard. It's necessary, but it's something that we have to deal with every day once you get to a certain point. And it is a way, gaming is a way for us to take a deep breath, step away from all that hectic, stress-filled life. And even if it's just a couple of hours every couple of weeks, or I don't know how often you might game, hell, put it in the comments, whatever. But it's something that gives us a release. It gives us a chance to step away from all the hard stuff. And I say that in a way that, I'm being vague. I'm fortune telling here. You who are watching this, unless you have the best life ever and it's all unicorns and rainbows and leprechauns giving you keys to their pots of gold, because they're locked, by the way. I don't know if you know that, but okay. Um, if if that's the case, then this isn't for you. I mean, this channel can be, but this message isn't for you. For the rest of us that have real lives, uh, it's it is something that we need from time to time to get away from it. Whether it's, you plug into your Xbox or your PlayStation or your PC, whatever, play a couple hours of video games, or if you get your friends together and throw some cards down, play a couple of rounds of Magic the Gathering, or you sit down. For like me, I'll sit down with my kids and play a couple of a game of Kill Dr. Lucky, or Unstable Unicorns is one of our favorites recently. Little things like that that um, it gives you that much needed release from everyday pressure. And I have been so unbelievably fortunate that for the last 20 years, I've been able to be a part of that. Part of creating that, a part of writing some of these stories and coming up with some of these game mechanics. And I mean, hell, I've had a chance over my career uh, to work with some of the biggest companies in the industry and work with a few of the biggest names, some of which are my own personal idols from when I was just a gamer. When I didn't do this for money, when I actually did it uh, because I love the games, which I still do. I'm still a gamer. My calendar is filled with, hey, D&D on this night, Vampire the Masquerade on this night. Oh, hey, we're gonna schedule a Twilight Imperium day because you need a day at my buddy's house, down the way. And then, hey, on Thursday we're going to play test. There's, being a game professional does not mean that we stop being a gamer. It does change some of the ways that we look at things, but we are still, we still have that love in our heart for what this does for us and what it does for other people. And as I was saying, I've been very fortunate to get a chance to play games with some of my own idols. And now, as the years have passed, to call some of these people my friends. That I can't tell you the number of times I've gone to conventions and see people that I see maybe 3 or 4 times a year, aside from the digital universe. Um, but I get a chance to see them and talk to them and have a few drinks, maybe grab dinner, and it is, these are my extended family. I might only see them 3 or 4 times a year, but I've got aunts and uncles, great aunts, cousins that I see even less. And a friend of mine once told me that friends are the family that you choose, and I can't say I can't express that more than with my gaming industry family. Everywhere I've gone, everywhere I've worked, I've come away with friends that whether or not I think that they'd hide a body for me or anything is maybe a different story, but there's that camaraderie there that I think it's because all of us, whether or not you are a cosplay model, whether or not you are a card gamer, a historical gamer, a board gamer, a video gamer, we're all part of this industry. We're all part of this collective hive mind, if you will, that is the gaming mentality. The number of times I've run into people that I haven't seen in 30 years from high school that are now gaming, or I'll get a Facebook chirp from someone who I went to junior high with, who is now a uh, guidance counselor at a school or a career counselor or something like that, and they're super into the idea of being a game designer. And so they reached out to them, and then that person reached out to me because I'm very public and very open about kind of what I do, and I'm very proud of what I do and what I've created thus far, and hope that it just gets better. Which is bringing us all around kind of full circle to why I'm doing this channel. So I've talked to several people in the industry, and why I'm doing this channel is honestly because I don't think anybody that I know of, and I could be wrong. If there are other channels out there, please feel free to link to them in the comments, and I'll gladly check them out. And hell, maybe we can do like a little tag team double episode whammy or something. I don't know. I don't even know if that's something a thing. This is really new to me. I've done lots of Facebook Live stuff, but this whole YouTube thing is foreign territory to me. So please bear with me, and hopefully as time progresses, I'll be able to add like special effects and yeah, instead of just making sounds with my mouth and a lot of hand gestures. Regardless to all of that, sorry, I went on a tangent. You're gonna get, if you follow me, if you hit that subscribe button, please, you're gonna see me probably go on lots of tangents, because I think that one of the reasons why I've been able to do what I do for as long as I have is because my brain doesn't work like normal people's. My brain is out there, and it's always firing in weird things. My kids, I've given them more than enough ammunition as time goes on for them to look at me and go, Dad, you're a weirdo, because I am, and I'm unabashedly so. Yeah. So again, tangent. So let's get back to the reason I want to do this. The reason why I want to do this channel is because there are so many other gaming spotlights out there. I don't think that there has been a person or a professional that has put a magnifying glass on what, as gaming professionals, what we do, especially those of us that have we collectively are called freelancers. What we do on a week-to-week, day-to-day basis in order to make ends meet, in order to survive in this industry that can sometimes be really cutthroat, sometimes be utterly thankless, not necessarily the most financially forgiving industry. But I will say that if you don't mind setting aside a few dollars, or English pounds or Canadian dollars, or I don't know, Dutch marks. I don't even know what's euro. I don't know what's going on right now with some of the other monies out in the world. But if you don't mind setting some of that aside to be able to do the thing that you love, and really put yourself out there in order to hopefully make your mark. I know for me personally, I want, if something ever happened to me, if I don't ever find my genie in a bottle, or vampires aren't real and I don't find eternal life, that I leave my mark out there for future generations to enjoy. If I can make 1,000 people smile, then that's 1,000 lives that have felt what I've done. I don't know if that makes any sense. I kind of am rambling a little bit. Try not to wax philosophical too much on this. I want to kind of focus on the actual, like, what we do and the day-to-day life. But I guess my personal mission statement is, I want to make people happy. I want to put a little more joy and imagination and wonder in the world, because there's enough darkness, and there's enough heavy stuff out there to weigh us down to the banal kind of anchors of the world, that it's my calling. That sounds really kind of up my own butt. It's sort of my dream. My dream is to hopefully lift the weight off of some people and give them something else to think about, and give back what I have received from the game industry. The amount of enjoyment, the thousands of hours at this point of gaming groups and uh, uh, design time, or frankly this studio. My studio is in my house here in Indiana. And when my wife and I bought this house, we saw this room, and it was supposed to be an extra bedroom, and we both sort of just kind of fell in love with it. The idea that this was going to be an art space, this was going to be a studio. Originally, it was going to be either a shared studio between myself and my wife, who does charcoal and paint and a lot of cool, very very like awesome traditional art stuff. Um, but as I became more full-time professional, every day, all day, sometimes more than people want me to be, but I kind of took this space over, and it sort of became my collective studio over here. At some point in one of these videos, I'm sure I'll pick the camera up and make you guys really kind of motion sick by walking you around and showing you the studio. But it's not terribly big, but it's big enough for me. I'm sitting here. I'm at my computer, my writing station. This is where I do a lot of the writing and authoring, design stuff. Secrets, secret binder. But this is where I do anything that's like computer text based, or graphics based. And then over here, which I'll show you eventually, or maybe I'll do a cast from there. I don't know. The is my painting and sculpting station. I have painted models since I was 10, I think. Is when my stepbrother gave me a set of old Raoul Partha lead models, some which he painted. He was really good in his day, and he gave me a bunch of brushes and my kind of my first handful of paints. And I kind of fell in love with the concept, and from shortly thereafter on until now, I've never lived anywhere, with the exception of the one semester in the dorms that I couldn't. I've never lived anywhere that I didn't have a dedicated paint space. Sometimes to the sacrifice of an entire bedroom in a two-bedroom or in a two-room apartment. But regardless to that, this is what I do. This is my world. This is where I spend most of my time in the studio, and I this is my safe space. This is my imagination station. uh, um, I'm always writing down notes on my phone if something pops up in my brain. It's like, oh my God, what a great idea! Or I'll see something that inspires me. But this is where that stuff kind of comes together. I know a lot of people will go and work in, they'll take like a laptop or their tablet to Starbucks or Panera or something along those lines, or like the local coffee shop, or out to the park. And I can do that. I've done it before, for kind of a change of scenery. But this is really where I get the most work done, where I feel the most at home in my space. And I'm very thankful for the ability to do this, and the ability to have this space, and the wherewithal to be able to use this properly, to be a full-time freelance nerd, game professional, whatever you want to call it. So this first, first episode, channel, chapter, I don't know, whatever. This first broadcast is I don't know. I kind of wanted to sort of explain why I was doing the channel. I'm hopefully going to be able to record at least once a week, and publish on Fridays is really kind of what I'm thinking. Unless I happen to be at a show or something where I can't broadcast directly, or maybe I will. Maybe I'll figure out how to record from on the road or from my hotel room or something like that. Whatever the case may be, I want to try and do one of these a week. And this is going to be, uh, again, I tangented. What I'm coming around to is I sort of wanted to show how life is for a freelancer, for a freelance game professional. Um, because I know sometimes when I follow other people's channels and I follow other Twitter handles and things, and I see a lot of a lot of stardom, a lot of, oh, check this thing out, my most recent project made this many $1 million, or I'm part of this team that's doing this thing. Or even when it comes down to, hey, check it out, I'm at this show playing this game, and that's super cool, and I love it. And believe me, I love putting those posts up too. Um, but what we haven't seen, what we don't get to see is, honestly, how hard this is, how difficult it is to make your way in the industry. And um, I know there's gonna be people out there that are like, oh, how hard is it? You play games for a living, you get to just make games up and live life on your own and work from home. And uh, you're not wrong. That is a lot of really, really cool things that are part of this career that I've started and that I've sculpted over the years. But it is also really difficult. Very, very tough. And I want to express to everyone out there that I am not I'm not going to sugarcoat things. If things are hard, I'm going to tell you. If deadlines are looming and I can't do a half an hour, 45-minute episode, and it's only 20 minutes because I'm like, I can't take this much time away from what I'm doing, that's something that can happen. But I do want to I wanted to make this channel to basically give me an opportunity to talk to you guys, to talk to the world, and hopefully have you guys in the comments and whatnot, and pop in that little subscribe button and talk to me in the future about what you do, or maybe the next show you're going to go to, or maybe we got to play a game together at a show. And these are the things that I kind of want to highlight about life as a gaming professional. Because while it isn't always, puppy dogs and rainbows, it is still an amazing, amazing thing that I get to do. And if it wasn't for you guys, for you gamers out there, I wouldn't be able to do this. And a lot of people like me wouldn't be able to make a living or make their mark if it wasn't for the people who came before us, the Dave Arnesons, the Gary Gygaxes, um, the Jordan Wiseman, like those some of the greats that are out there. And I'm sure I'm not naming all of them, and I don't want to sit there and name drop all day long. But it's it is on their successes that we have reached the kind of this really sort of excellent age in gaming. Um, I've heard some people call it a golden age, but I don't want to call it that, because that makes it seem like it couldn't get better, and I know that it can. I have every faith that the industry is just going to keep growing and keep finding new and awesome ways to make people happy and bring smiles to tables, and hopefully elevate the next generation of gamer to be better at gaming and social interactions and being good to one another at the table and away from the table, frankly, than we were, and that the generation before us was, and so forth and so on. And this is just my kind of way of hopefully helping with that, with a little realistic look at the life is really what it comes down to. Um, and I think what I'm going to do for this first episode, since I've been rambling about why, I'm going to at least give you a little bit of information about myself and what's going on. As I said at the very beginning, my name's Bryan Steele. Professionally, I often go by Bryan CP Steele. My middle initials are for Carl Patrick, my grandfather and my uncle, both of which are deceased. But they were very, very important people in my life. And I use that CP as also a way to differentiate me from a couple of the other Bryan Steeles out there. I know there's like a jazz saxophonist. There's the amazing Creature Boy body actor who I've had a chance to talk to several times, and it's funny. It's always funny because we're two different Bryan Steeles in drastically different worlds, and he's amazing and gigantic, and I am not, or at least not in the way that he is. I just kind of have a little different kind of largeness. But so I add that CP to a lot of the things that I do in an effort to kind of make it easier to differentiate my products and processes and things than other Bryan Steeles. It has been asked of me before, is that my real name? It is. I was born Bryan Carl Steele. And a little funny story, I was born the exact same day that Elvis Presley died, just a handful of hours apart. And my father and grandfather kept that information away from my mother until after my birth certificate was signed and sent off with my current nomenclature because they were afraid that she would, as it being a very big Elvis fan at the time, name me Elvis Aaron Steele, which I almost was, but that didn't happen, and I'm a Bryan Steele, and I always have been. I'm not sure where the spelling of my first name came. I am a Bryan, which I know is less common than the Bri. I don't know. I don't know where that came from, or whose choice it was. It's something my mom could probably answer. Hell, maybe it was my dad just kind of flipping a coin and saying I or Y, whoosh, and it came up heads. Regardless, I've been an Indiana resident my whole life. I grew up in the region, which is the couple of counties up by Chicago. I grew up there until just after my 18th birthday, at which point I graduated high school and moved down to Lafayette, Indiana, which is the central Indiana, to go to Purdue. And I just never really left. I now live in a tiny little town just outside of Lafayette called Dayton, Indiana. And by just outside, I mean like minutes. We're spitting distance away from where Lafayette is. But I've lived here my whole life, and it's not on account of opportunities that I didn't have elsewhere. I've been offered jobs in other states before. It's just one of those things where this is where my family is. This is where my friends are, and there is really no amount of money or decent weather or political issues that can really steer me away from those people that give me the joy in my life that I need on a day-to-day basis. So that's me in a nutshell. I started gaming when I was really young. My cousin Toby, I was with my dad at my cousin's house, and he was playing D&D with some of his friends. And I'm sure my dad told Toby, make sure you play with your little cousin. I was sat down with a dwarf. I can't remember his name for the life of me because I was only 7 years old. Many moons ago. and I was given a couple of bits of information about how dwarves hate goblins and goblins are stupid and you have an axe and you should hit them. Like it was really, yeah, I think I was kind of just filling a seat and keeping things warm. But I remember very vividly uh, enjoying the concept of this make believe with rules. And getting to roll these weird dice, these crazy, things you got to fill in with a crayon, like just these weird things um, that I fell in love with it, and over the course of several years, my stepbrother got me into painting some of the Ral Partha minis, and so I went and bought more at our local hobby shop, which was also a pet store, um, and it became really kind of the only, between video games and role playing and reading D&D books and reading the Dragonlance novels from a very early age, which, I don't know if Margaret's ever going to see this, but I mentioned icons and I mentioned idols. The sheer fact that I get a chance now to talk to Margaret at conventions, and that we speak is 12-year-old me would mind blown. He would have no idea that this was ever something that could happen in the future, because it's her writing and her ideas and her uh, jaunt as a TSR licensed author, that kind of held on to a lot of my friends that I still have to this day, is through Dragonlance and through D&D and D and through gaming groups and whatnot, that uh, I became the social creature that I am. Is And so I have to, if you get a chance to see this, Margaret, or someone sees it and tells you thank you, from my heart to you. Um, and so I got into gaming and I stayed into gaming, and then a couple years later I discovered um, wargaming through Rogue Trader, the original Warhammer 40,000, and it just kind of spiraled and snowballed and became really the only thing. Skateboarding got set off to the side, playing the bass guitar got set off to the side, everything else became secondary, um, except maybe girls, but that's a totally different topic. Um, but everything else became secondary to gaming. And my mom, growing up, while I was growing up, she used to say, if you paid attention to your schoolwork half as much as read those damn D&D books. I can't tell you the number of times that she threatened to throw out my monsters compendiums, these giant binders full of things that I used to carry around with me all the time. And I'm very thankful that she didn't, obviously, but it really did kind of become what I identified with, was gaming in its different forms. And fast forward years and years and years, tons of gaming, even LARPing. Yeah, I LARPed for quite a while. Vampire, changeling, werewolf, even some D&D LARPs, the whole nine yards. If it was game related, I dove in. I love the idea of being in this other world. This is what I'm gonna do, and I got into a situation with my schooling and my professional life that ended basically put me into a whole bunch of kind of dead end retail jobs. Working at an Osco, working at a shoe store, I worked 2 weeks at a donut bakery. I was all over the place trying to find something. I worked for 6 hours at a Meijer doing third shift stocking. 6 hours because I faked a stomach cramp and went home, because that was the worst job that I've ever been in. It really was, 6-8 months of my life that it was a whirlwind of bad decisions. Lots and lots of bad decisions. And I ended up basically as a temp at a State Farm insurance agency, like one of the HQs. And my job was to call fire departments around the state and talk to the fire marshals and find out like the status of their water pumping systems. I mean, really kind of the definition of banal. It was like just the soul crushing cubicle work. And I made a couple of good friends out of the situation, which was awesome. But really, when it came down to it, every day I came home and I would sit down with a comic book, or I would sit down with a game book or whatever, new codex came out or whatever, and it was just like this weight lifted off my shoulders. My wife at the time, Sarah, who she's always been one of my best friends. She basically pointed out the fact that this job was killing me, that it was killing my spirit, it was killing my will to write, which is something I've always done. I've always written stories since like junior high, and it was her kind of motivation that said, "Hey, we need to get you into a job that's going to get you an opportunity to flex some of this." And I started working at a cell phone store, kind of part-time, and during that transition, I ended up talking to one of my local friends, one of my gamer buddies. His family owns a local comic shop, and the local comic shop, his mother was managing and spending lots of the hours there, and he was in grad school and needing to do a great deal of work that wasn't at the shop. And so we started talking about buying into that comic book shop, basically kind of buy into the process. And the idea was that I would basically work the counter, as many hours as needed to earn my bit of the profits. But then it would be also something where I could sit there and write or paint at the same time. Hopefully a creative outlet. And while we were kind of talking back and forth about this process, this idea, my friend Roy, the gentleman at the comic book shop, said, hey, if you're going to do this, if you're really interested, we should take you to one of the kind of retailer only special expos, one of these trade events that, regular, I've been going to Gen Cons and Origins okay, whatever. I've been going to conventions as a gamer for a long time, but I had never gone to an actual like retailer only trade show. And I only live about 45 minutes away from 40 minutes to an hour away from the Alliance distribution center up in Fort Wayne. And they were about ready to have the Alliance open house, which is not even something I had ever heard of. So Roy brought me to this show, and I was blown away with just the amount of cool stuff that was out there. And, hey, this is a book that's not going to be out until next year. And this is, here, have some free samples, have some hero clicks. Like I was like, this is amazing and everything I want to do forever. And I ended up seeing a booth that had just amazing art on it. This fantastic, cool-looking like archway. It just blew me away. I loved it. I was like, this is the coolest thing that I've seen. And sitting on a little table in front was a little like 2x2 kind of grass map, and a bunch of unpainted models, like 5 or 6 models, and some dice and some like kind of dry erase, print Photoshop style print stat cards. And the guys behind the counter, a guy named Matt and a guy named Bryan, were showing people this game that was set in their D&D world that they would be putting out in the next year. This kind of skirmish miniatures game. And I went by and I saw the models and I was like, this is cool. And I played a couple of games, and I was like, this is a really neat idea. Like what you've got here is really cool. And it was not something I'd really ever seen before. I played BattleTech and played 40K and all these other things, but I hadn't really ever seen, that style before. And then after the hall closed, the gentleman Bryan offered, he's like, hey, let's go next door into the free gaming area, and let's play some more games. Let's throw some, let's push these models around and have some more fun, drink some free beer, and have a good time. And that's exactly what we did. We played until like almost 2 in the morning. Brian and I just the same 6 models effectively over and over and over again, drinking terrible free beer and playing this game. And by the end of the night, I was so enamored with both the person that was kind of selling this game to me and the game itself, that I told them, I was like, listen, if I can help in any way, let me. I've here, have my business card, which my business card at that time was basically like one of those like perforated Avery labels that had like my MySpace on it, to really date how far back this goes. For you youngsters, MySpace is like Facebook, but with even worse functionality. It was awful, but you could put music that people could listen to. Yeah, okay. But so basically, I was like, here you go. If you ever need anything out of me, you let me know. And I didn't think twice. I didn't think twice about it. And about 3, 4 weeks later, I get a phone call from Matt Wilson. Oh yeah, I forgot to say. So what we were playing was the preliminary, like the play testy type stuff for War Machine. The first couple of jacks, the first couple of little dudes, set in the Iron Kingdoms, which at that time all they had out was a couple of books for the Witchfire trilogy and the Monsternomicon, for D&D. And I I get an email a couple of weeks later that's basically, hey, it says on your professional MySpace, it says on your MySpace that you've done some writing, and at that point I had done some writing for like some fanzines, fictionalreality.com.org. I don't remember. It was a cool fanzine about gaming. I had done a couple of little magazine blurbs, all unpaid, maybe some free stuff involved. But I had listed it on there because it is something that I was aspiring to do, to write novels and such. And so Matt calls me or sends me an email and says, "Hey, um, it says here you've done some writing. As it so happens, we've got room for some writing to be done. Can you do us a test piece? Get us a couple of thousand words down about, it's kind of set in our world. Show us that you got the chops." And so I did exactly that. I wrote a characterization piece, where I created, from scratch. I took a couple of the characters from their books and put in a character of my own creation, this little gentleman gobber, with a pocket watch and a bowler cap, and this loving little Cockney gobber that had this ridiculously long name, but hung out with these guys who I envisioned him in my brain, for those of us that are children of the 80s, basically like an Orko type character, this annoying little thing that occasionally you got to listen to because he's got some like moral center, or he's going to have some information, or something's going to happen that you need this little dude here. And that ended up being Reinhold, the Gobber extraordinaire. And so I wrote this piece. I put it together, and I gave it to my wife at the time and said, "What do you think? This is my first real professional attempt." And she read through it and she said, "Oh my God, I love it, except I hate that you killed Reinhold." Because in my original story, I got him shot. I had him killed, and it made Victoria super angry, and she, went out and won the day because you killed my little gobber friend. And Sarah said, she goes, "Why don't you have him be like unbearably plucky, like he's or he's got this like luck factor that oh, he slipped in the mud but the cannonball went right over his head." And so I changed the end of the story to have him live, to have him survive, in this sort of kind of funny-ish sort of way. And I sent that version over to Matt, and then basically sat there hitting refresh on my email for 2 days, and once it popped up, he goes, "Oh, I love it. You did great. Reinhold's amazing. He made us all very happy. This, what you're doing. You know the story. You've got the concept. Do you think you can do 70,000 words by August?" And I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. I said yes immediately. I was like, "Oh my god, yes." But I had not. I don't even know what, at that point in my life, I didn't even know what 70,000 words looked like. Whether or not, was it a book? Is it, is that a story? Is that a novella? I had no idea, no concept of how much work that would be. But I said yes regardless, because it was a gig being offered. It was my first official gig from a real company, for actual money. And that ended up being a lot of the initial kind of characterization and fluff, lore, if you will, story arc of War Machine Prime. Um, the first War Machine Prime in 2003. That was my first full like professional piece of art or piece of work. Um, and that project won 3 Origins Awards in the following year, and I never looked back. Um, I knew at that moment that from the first time that I heard someone talking about a character that I helped narrate or name, or come up with the plot behind, the first time I overheard that in a game store. um, these people don't know who I was. I was nobody, and a ghost on the wall. I'm there to buy the most recent, Vampire: The Eternal Struggle expansion packs, and I overhear someone say, "Oh, the Butcher. Oh my God, who do you think Lola is? What's up with these Orgoth? Can you believe, Denegra and Val and Vicky are twins?" You know, they were wowing about storylines and characters that I helped create, and it it hit me in a way that nothing had, aside from like marriage, nothing had hit me like that before. Yeah, people have played in my D&D games, and you're like, "Oh, that's a cool plot," or, "Oh, that's a cool NPC," things like that, or whatnot, or they've seen a model that I've painted and be like, "That's badass." But it wasn't like this. It was a different feeling. It was legitimate pride in something that I had created, because I was a fly on the wall and hearing people talk about my creations. And I knew at that point that that is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. Um, I don't know whether or not I would ever retire. It is easily, um, I still get that feeling. It's been, almost 20 years later, and I still get that little kind of butterfly thing when I see on a boardgamegeek.com, or Spiky Bits or Bella Soul or something is talking about a character that I created. It might have gone through 5 different revisions and epic versions and 3 rules rewrites and whatever, but I know, like, at the heart of everything, Vicky and Denegra would not be twins. They would not be sisters if it wasn't for me. And call that pride, call it hubris, but knowing that little spark, that little boop, Orsus Soctavir, the Butcher, that's my name. I made that up for him. And so every time someone else has written that, or every time someone has said that in a tournament, that is what I mentioned earlier in this video, that it is I want to leave a mark, and I want people to be happy, and I want to add my own bit of kind of sprinkle in that fantasy realm that they get to live in, instead of dealing with the hard stuff in life. And so every time that kind of stuff happens, that is why I do this. That feeling, when my son, who's only 10, when my son sees a book on our bookshelf, um, and or like sees a book in the studio and goes, "Dad, your name's on here." Well, that's because I wrote that, son. Uh, Seeing him have a reaction, or lately he's started coming up with his own D&D monsters. He doesn't even play D&D yet, but he knows that I make monsters, and he plays video games that are about role playing, and he has that sort of he wants that spark for himself, and that's the stuff that I live for. And I know I'm gone a little long-winded here. I'm going to wrap this up, but basically, that's how I got my start. I got my start in this industry by loving games and loving being a part of it and loving what they do for other people and what they do for me. And it got me in a position where I could join the industry professionally. And from privateer, I went on to work with Mongoose Publishing in several licensed works, Conan, Babylon 5, Traveler, RuneQuest. Um, those licenses. I got to work with Warner and the Conan Properties people, Starship Troopers. These were the things that I got to work with because of playing games with Brian Snowdy and Matt Wilson at Alliance in 2002. And fast forward, I've worked for many different companies, many different lines, but my central being and my goal here is, it really is just to help make more joy in the world and more fantastic realms and concepts and things that are a way for everyone to take a step back and take a deep breath and just sort of enjoy themselves for a couple of hours or a couple of days or whatever, because we need that as people. And I think that it is something that is a worthwhile experience. And I am creating this channel, full circle tangent. I'm creating this channel and I'm going to make these videos and I'm going to talk to you about what I'm working on, what's currently got my attention, which deadlines are happening, what new show is coming out, what has inspired me, maybe something cool that I did in or that I saw or witnessed or helped create in a most recent role-playing session. I might even just get on here and tell you stories. I don't even know what this is going to mean, what this whole channel is going to do. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to spread the love. Call me a hippie. I'm not, but I want to make more people aware and enjoy the different aspects of gaming and game creation and what we do. No matter how hard it is, I might get on here and I might be in a just a terrible mood because I've got deadlines hitting me. I've got projects that aren't working the way they're supposed to, whatever. But I want to tell you guys stories. I want to spread the information about the different projects that I'm fortunate enough to be a part of, and maybe get you guys excited about some stuff in the interim. And then, of course, I'm at Bryan CP Steele on Twitter. I'm at Bryan CP Steele on Facebook. I'll be watching all the comments on these, and it'll give me an opportunity to hopefully. Well, I mean, frankly, it'll give me an opportunity to interact with a bigger audience and maybe get some ideas and questions and opinions and stuff that I can answer in future episodes. I don't know. Again, this is new to me. I just really kind of want to share what it's like to be a freelancer and what it's like to be part of the process, and hopefully surviving day to day, financially, emotionally, mentally, um, to keep putting out cool games and neat stories and ideas, and that's pretty much it. Um, I haven't figured out like a good sign off or anything yet, as far as like catchphrase or anything like that. Aside from from me to you, I love games. You love games, and I hope that between now and the next time you get a chance to play some. So let's go play some games.